Wisdom is an achievement, right? No, wisdom is an experience, not an achievement. And yet others are saying, I've achieved wisdom in many ways. And while that is granted, it was the experiences along the path of your journey that granted you the wisdom in whatever way it showed up for you, whether it is through the eyes of your own guides or through the visions of others who come through for you in your world. You see, this is the nature of looking at others and saying to themselves, what are they showing me about myself? This is one of those higher level learnings that many are working with, trying to understand, what does that mean? It could be that it's a comparison and contrast vision of where are they versus where am I in my own vision of what it is to be of love for all of us. Or it could be, what am I needing from this person to show me in order to guide me to another place of understanding so that I can better free myself from the constraints of society that is holding me captive or prisoner in my mind. Many of us are feeling like our minds are our wisdom, and it is beyond that in most circles of love of soul. We have wisdom that we are granted upon arrival, and we have wisdom that we are able to tap into from various levels of love of ourselves or others. And when we realize that the, quote, others are indeed aspects of who we are as a collective vision, then we understand the nature of why many are in honor of all of us, not degrading all of us, but showing us more of where we are in our own minds about how it feels to be. Some people say it feels crappy to be on this plane, and they hate it. And they want to be gone. And so they take those steps that grant them those visions, believe it or not. Others are saying, I never realized the beauty within. And that was the nature of what many who are doing what this soul is doing are honoring for all of us. The ability for all of us to at some point understand the nature of the fluidity of our vibration allows for various souls to come through and say, I want to be where that one is. This is where many are saying to themselves, I want to be highlighted as beautiful always. And yet we understand that that is almost an impossible task in a plane in which others are describing each other as rich, poor, fat, thin, male, female, all of these characteristics that people are utilizing to describe people in order to, quote, feel better about who they are, or to feel the vision as it is a justification for my victimhood in my mind, to feel like I am either the perpetrator, right? This is not what we're talking about. But this is the nature of those who are saying my wisdom comes from feeling the experience of poor health, perhaps. And that wisdom from feeling the health deteriorate lets us know what we're talking about. Okay? If my health is of concern to anybody, let it be known that I am more of alignment of the love of self rather than the love of other people's opinions of who I am. That's where I go. Do you want to know how many opinions are lobbed at people that they don't even know? Because in essence, it's just a characterization of what they themselves are looking to see, how do I compare with others? Or how do I contrast the vision so that I myself can come up with a better, it's like product. Some people are utilizing it to sell either information or products. Brenda is on that path of glory for what her process does for people. It's a self-explanation of who we are, most often in our hearts. When we claim that we are wise, it is granted to every single soul that is vibrated on this plane and beyond. There is no such thing as I am dumb or dumber, right? Jim Carrey is on his own spiritual quest. It is his highlight moment. People were assuming he was off his rocker, and he said, I know better now. I know better now where I was and what I was feeling and why I was feeling it. And that's why his soul has been honored by Brenda as going, we're the Fruit Loops of other societies, right? We're the ones that are taking care of ourselves while others are flourishing in their beauty where they are and at the vibration in which they reside. It is not a fluid vibration for some who are characterized as in struggle, consistently struggling in their minds, or in survival mode most often. And this is why Brenda is understanding of those who are fighting for the survival of others through the vision of hatred of those who are not, quote, rescuing them or lifting them up. It takes a unified vision of love to come together to raise enough people up in order to see the beauty within. And when you do that vision, you don't hold others as less than yourselves. You don't treat people as if they are dirt or objects of desire only, right? Brenda's dealing with men on a different level than what she was a period of time ago. And she's seeing it for what it is. One level of love for those souls who love people, but who also honor the vision of its respect for the nature of women's fears. Okay, Brenda has to realize in her moments, for instance, when she's fearful, and she honors it, but she also knows it's a careful routine I take in order to avoid those who are potentially of harm to me. I have that wisdom. I also have the wisdom that would say you're about to be hurt by someone if you don't aim back at Jim Carrey, right? He's the strength of his own soul. Others are saying it's not for me because they felt like he was so out there in his vision. He went through his own process of deconstruction of who he was as a soul. He has a limited view of identities at this point and is more about the nature of people are of grace, people are of wisdom, people are of honor, with this soul and with myself. What we are honoring is each other's presence within the vision of love of all of us. He was of entertainment value, and he said, I made it a game at some point in my life. I became very serious and worried about the world population, and then I realized that I myself am able to speak out against the injustices of the world. This is where many are. Many are speaking out against the injustices of the world in a way that is more inspirational of those souls who need to be lifted up, is what others would say, versus those souls that would say, I'm here for a reason to show us aspects of who we are as humans and as souls, creating from the place of destruction of certain cities or the bombing of the world, right? That's where people are afraid. The bombing of the world isn't coming in any time, any place soon, other than the nature of many realities. Brenda works with the realities of this plane at this moment in this breath. Okay? She knows what happens in the future because it comes to her. But in essence, her vision is, I honor those who are afraid of the future and are creating the future in that vibration of it. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we afraid of and who are we working with? Am I afraid of a man just because he's a man? Or am I demonizing him because he is somehow looked at as a rich person, perhaps? A white male, perhaps? This is going to stir some feathers a bit, right? She works with the Black community online in many ways without their own understanding of how she does it. She is very aware of their causes and those of minorities and people of color from various places and times. She is of detriment to their vision, is what some would say. But if they themselves went through the process of love, they would see that it is a stepping stone to the highlight of how we work our wisdom. We caretake those around us. We honor them for who they are as one of us here on this plane, so we take care of each other. We don't try to degrade each other's wisdom. We just say, I honor it for what it is. Whether or not I can align with it is of no consequence, because in Brenda's wisdom that her own soul brought through for her, Whatever is in our path is in alignment, whether we care to agree or disagree with it or not. It means it's an honoring of the vision of wisdom that we are receiving. We get to see ourselves in the mirror every day. We get to align with ourselves every day. And yet when we go out, are we looking at people as if they're bad? Or are we saying, thank you for showing me the beauty in which you reside at that moment? Whether or not it's pleasant or not. That's the highest vision of what most are able to receive. Okay? Now, for those of you who understand that, it's a beautiful expression, isn't it? Many don't want to know what that feels like. But that's the nature of soul retrieval, is what he went through, and it was a painful process. He's saying, go for it, Brenda, I'm on your side. It's more like allowing for people to be without condemning them to racial biases, correct? We have racial biases. But what we aren't saying in the vision is those who are taking it on as an identity are often the first ones to fall, because they are then creating that dynamic of there's something wrong with who I am just for being put on this plane in the way in which I showed up. That's why people don't align with that idea of I'm here to create havoc, correct? It's an alternate perspective, but it doesn't mean that those who are riding in that vibration are somehow less than. They are experiencing more of a difficulty in the mind, perhaps, but they also are justifying it with the excuses often that they are, it's like inhabiting a cause that's of worth. And this is where Brenda shines her light. And in essence, she says, don't let anyone determine your worth. Now, if someone wants to know what it's like to show people how perhaps she works, whatever I would grant myself is what I would grant every single soul that walks on this plane. If you want the love of self, it's granted to you always. Even whether or not I do it, it's there. Every soul is of love of self. When you're walking upon this plane, you're breathing in the vision of who you are as soul, and that is a determination of all of us to ride into. If you are of the idea of my worth is being challenged because I'm not, quote, worthy of their vision, that's a different kind of worth issue, right? I'm worthy whether or not I agree with people or not. And they are as well. I don't expect others, as Brenda would say, to caretake my heart. I do my own vision questing. I rose up to the nature of who I am as soul. I know what it's like to feel the empath vision, and I would say many are saying it's the energy needed. You guys are mistaken if you think you want to ride that vibration without doing a ton of inner level journeying with your own soul first and foremost. Okay, you want to be able to do that vision very well and then hand that off to another soul who would say, oh, I can take it from here, right? My soul honors me with the vision of what his soul, as Jim Carrey, would say, we ride together in unison, understanding to be the oddballs of society in various ways. He was the comedic genius. He still is. He's more serious in his moments for now. And he says, just wait until she vibrates in the beauty of love of every soul that's ever walked on this plane, right? When you have that vision, it is more like an honoring of those who were even deemed to be of less than or greater than others. I am the superiority complex is where many go in that vision. And that's why Brenda is more of a let's keep it on an even keel. So she doesn't align with the idea of trying to highlight people who were of devil energy, perhaps, who created from that place and time where it was needed in certain minds for them to free themselves from the destruction of their own hearts, for not knowing that they themselves were part of the creative process that brought them either to this plane as soul or to the situations that were planted for them by others. This is what is the hardest thing for many to understand, where people are saying to themselves, I'm beautiful for who I am, just for being here. And that's why people are utilizing that vision as like a bump up in their own vision without acknowledging it for everyone else. That's why it's the hardest thing to do if you don't own your own vision. And when people go to their own souls, they'll get that vision. And this is where you'll see a lot of people doing the light work, because they see the issues in the world rather than the understanding of it. And that's the nature of then, once you have an understanding of the dynamics at play, certain things are going to be held as great to focus on versus the highlighting of the destruction of the planet. This is why we don't always align with those who are of causes versus let's make the progress in the ways in which we can that makes sense, versus going to the worst case scenario that destroys us or our souls or our vision. This is why Brenda knows that certain visions of hers were destroyed by others because they claimed superiority. And she said, yeah, no, I don't think so. I'm going back to my own soul's vision of love for me. And you can highlight yourself as superior in your own race or kindness or whatever in telling people how to be. Versus understanding that each soul has its own wisdom attached to it. You are all rising in your vibration when you walk upon this plane, whether or not you realize it or not, because this plane is indeed evolving from what it was many generations ago. It's just a process of evolution. This is why the Darwinian notion is very strong in the scientific community. And notice how much wisdom we gain from that, but there is less than visions for his soul as well, based on ideas of old. And this is why many are saying if you open up to the nature of soul and the creation of who we create our experiences, we create our own visions of our bodies most often. But if we let others determine our fate, as many are willing to do, many are willing to put their visions in the arms or the embrace of another. We create with those who have their own wisdom and their own ideas about what it's like to feel beautiful for who they are, whether or not they agree with it or not. Right? I'm the judgmental one. Brenda on one side. So everyone's making judgments every day. When you make a choice, you're utilizing your opinions and your judgments to decide for yourself how best to be for you most often. Others will utilize that vision to say, how can I utilize this vision to help others? This is why we often pass on other people's information to say, hey, maybe you would, reside better with this kind of source of wisdom rather than this one. Brenda is open to the other sources of wisdom. She just doesn't align with the idea of that it's always going to be for everybody. My wisdom can serve just about anybody if you believe in the idea that your soul is of wisdom, strength, honesty, dignity, and love for all. You just don't know it yet. And that's what people are afraid of, because they think it's something that you feel in the mind. It's not. It's an understanding that when we look at ourselves, we can understand that people themselves feel beautiful for who they are, whether or not they realize it, because it means that they are still on this plane creating from that beauty. Now, most will say, oh, there are plenty that don't feel beautiful for who they are. It's because they are often in the idea that I'm letting others' opinions influence my beauty. But on an internal level, they're still here. They are still flourishing in various ways, whether or not they understand it as that, because love doesn't mean pleasure only. Love means I'm experiencing myself from several planes of understanding and vibrations and beautiful wisdom. And that's why people need to understand that the idea that love heals all wounds is more about a cliche than the reality of what we're working with. This is why we often go to the idea that love exists in all of us. It's the wisdom and the guidance that Brenda aims for most often. She looks to us and she knows we work in, it's like a few dynamics: soul vision, soul guidance, and soul wisdom. Now, the wisdom is granted to us always. Guidance is also there for each of us to experience. We're guiding each other in various ways. We're looking at each other's wisdom and guiding ourselves to different experiences or not. We can say, let's just float, like that's the float our boat, whatever floats our boat. But the guidance that Brenda is talking about is the nature of your own internal guidance or your own wisdom that's coming through for you, depending on how you look at it. Wisdom of the nature in which we talk about certain concepts or what kind of visions others are bringing to us, that's that nature. Then there is the idea of guidance, which is the direct guidance that you receive from your soul that allows you to know either where to go or how to be, right? It's telling you where you are or where you reside. I'm in the anger vision is where sometimes my soul will say, okay, you're in anger right now. What's going on? Okay, when you realize, oh, I didn't even realize I was in anger, right? I was in frustration perhaps, or I was denying it. That's the nature of denying the emotions that we truly are feeling on a subconscious level. That's what you can get from your soul. Okay, that's a kind of direct wisdom. I'm giving you your future. I'm giving you your present. I will bring you your past if it's needed to be looked at in greater detail and reinforced as a beautiful wisdom gathering experience for you, whether or not it was pleasurable or not, or whether or not it agreed with you at the moment. Okay? And we're not doing this from the Pollyanna vision because some of those messages are of pain that needed to be looked at in order to release the pain. Okay? Soul vision is the nature of the predictive ability that we have with each other. We know what we're creating on a soul level, and it comes to us in the vision. My vision is of strength, dignity, and honesty always. I will not lie to you about your faith. I will not lie to you about your wisdom. I honor the vision of Christian in the essence of what it is in this moment, even as it is known, or as it was portrayed to be known by certain souls, who then, as we know, came through at certain points and lifted themselves up in that vision and said, this is the one for me. It's a beautiful expression for those who are utilizing it. Others are seeing the deconstruction of it bit by bit in its wisdom of what it was versus what was created from those souls who started that process. Okay, it is not saying that those souls are listening who are saying, oh, this is a beautiful expression. What about me? Brenda's getting a higher level wisdom right now, which is don't project evil onto her. Do you know what it's like to hear the wisdom of Jesus and still have people who would project evil onto her, thinking that it's less than? Because in essence, his soul was already creating from the victimhood of that vision. He himself had to go through that vision when he was bringing through his own wisdom. And this is why the wisdom of the ages is about utilizing our souls to grant us the wishes, right? She's the wish granter for some. Do you know what it's like to do that wisdom? Jim Carrey himself is also there saying, yeah, I was labeled as a freak. I was labeled as all kinds of things because I wanted to be seen as beautiful for who I was. Now, what we want people to take out of this experience of who we are as souls, right, is the idea that we don't need to gain information in order to be wise, because your wisdom is on board with you every moment of every breath. Because you're experiencing the world in different ways, in different times, and in different places that allow you to expand the consciousness not only of ourselves, but of this plane that we reside on and our souls. And so it's not about claiming superiority over anyone. It's about uniting in victory for all of us. And with that, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you are enjoying this. And in the moment of reality that Brenda creates in, we would say, help us to unite in the victory of love for all. That's her wisdom. And it's what we're going to end with on this day. Have a wonderful day.